Welcome, welcome, welcome to the first post edition of Mic Drops with yours truly, Elwin Green. Before I go, before I go any further, I want to know, how are you? Seriously, how are you? Drop a note in the comments. Um, most of us have had at least 24 hours now to absorb the news of a Trump presidency, Trump winning the election. Um, and I want you to be okay. If you're not okay, it's okay to say that. and maybe we can help each other along. Yeah, that's. Um, oh, how am I? Thanks for asking. I actually am okay right now. Um, I'm not nearly as bad off as I was this time 8 years ago. Okay. Um, 8 years ago, I went through something like the 5 stages of grief, right? Um, this time around, when it became evident, right, what, what was happening and what had happened, my first response was simple, was more cognitive than emotional. It was just perplexity. Like, how can this be happening? After everything that we all experienced during the first presidency, and after everything that we have seen since then, and after all that the Biden Harris administration has delivered for the American people, in spite of the inflation, which was has been part of global inflation, how can this be happening again? A lot of people are already diving into all that. Um, I won't try to dive into it myself. I'm simply saying that my first response to the news was perplexity. And then my mind moved into a degree of planning mode. And the question became, okay, how do I prepare? How do we prepare for this? How do we prepare for what is coming? So I'm going to share some thoughts. My notes are down here. Um, yeah, so the first thing, okay. I'm rearranging things in my mind and then saying that I don't really need to. All right, let's go. Um, how to prepare for what's coming. First, this will not apply for some of you, but this is for those of you for whom it does. Pray. Pray hard. As I say, if this doesn't apply for you, skip it. Skip it. But for those of you who are adherents of any faith tradition, pray hard and consistently. Just decide to lock into building your prayer life beyond what it has been before. That's the first thing. Number two, read. Um, we, the very fact that this happened a second time tells me that we, the American people, we need to read. We need to turn off our. I was going to say turn off our screens, but we can use our screens to read. Okay, we need to turn off the video games. We need to um, turn off the TV. Um, read. So here are some suggested book titles for you. And let's see, am I able to present? Aha, I am able to present. I just learned something. Yay. All right. I'm going to suggest some books for us to read. First, and this is not really in any particular order, but Strong Men, Mussolini to the Present. There's another version of this that has a slightly different title, but it still has Strong Men as the main part of the title. The author is Ruth Ben-Ghiat. I hope I am pronouncing your name correctly, Ms. Ben-Ghiat. If I get it wrong, please forgive me. I hold you in way too high esteem to deliberately mess up your name. I don't like to deliberately mess up other people's names, but we're not going to linger on that. All right. All right. As the title suggests, this is a book created to help readers understand how authoritarian leaders rise to their positions and how they operate once they attain their positions. And that is indeed what we are looking at come January 20th. America has elected, at the very least, a man who ardently desires to be a strong man. If you haven't yet done this, then moving forward, whenever you hear Donald Trump speak about other leaders, listen to how often he uses the word strong to describe the people whom he regards most highly. He doesn't use words like wise or compassionate. No, he says strong. Okay? And there's a whole psychology at work there about somebody projecting onto others the characteristics that they trying to derive from others the characteristics that they wish that they had in themselves. So they try to do it by associating with them. Anyway, go read some psychology. Book number 2, On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. The title, I believe, is self-evident, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century that we can all do well to master in the 21st century. All right. Patent switched. All right, there it is, On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century by Timothy Snyder. Next up, The Psychology of Trump Contagion by Dr. Bandy X. Lee. Dr. Bandy X. Lee is the person who convened in the fall of 2016, I think, or perhaps very early 2017, who convened a conference of mental health professionals to address their concerns with the fact that the United States of America, or actually the Electoral College, had elected as their president, as our president, a man in whom they saw serious personality disorder that made him dangerous. And they held this conference, and out of that conference came a book called The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. It has since been published in an updated edition. So you can also look for either of those books. This book goes beyond speaking about Donald Trump himself to speak about his effect on the American populace. In other words, how he got enough people to go along with him and to develop an attachment to him so that they would indeed vote for him a second time. So those are some books for us to read. I am putting them on my own reading list, and I'll be sharing from them at points moving forward. The fourth one to read, and I did not even check to see if it's on Amazon, so I'm going to check right now. Here we go. Project 2025, the blueprint and mandate for leadership. Project 2025 is 900 pages. So maybe we would all do better to take a look at Project 2025 Explained. I am totally improvising now. Project 2025 Explained, chapter by chapter, Understanding the Conservative Promise. Oh, okay. Maybe, but at the very least, find a book, or maybe even a couple of books that will help you grasp the blueprint that has been put together for the Trump administration. Yeah. And then the next step. Step one, pray. Step two, read. Step three, resist. As we read especially about Project 2025, I recommend, and this is what I plan to do myself, find amongst their many, many proposals, find one, maybe two, don't try to do more than two, find one or two that speak to you more strongly, and by that can be the one that disturbs you the most, that can be the one that you feel like you understand the most, but find one that speaks to you most strongly to push back against. The one thing, or maybe the two things in Project 2025 that you look at it and you say, I can make a personal commitment to doing what I can to prevent this from happening. And if, in spite of my best efforts to prevent it from happening, to resist it when it does. Okay. Which kind of leads into number four. Number one was pray. Number two was read. Number three was resist. Number four, prep. Those of you who are of a certain age will remember in 1998 and especially in 1999, a lot of people were really, really concerned that the world just might kind of go to pieces because of something called Y2K. If you, all right, for those of you who weren't around and who may not have even heard about it because nobody talks about it anymore, in 1999, there was a concern that the computer code for the vast majority of the world's computers might just lock up, freeze, detonate, blow up, die. at the turn of the millennium because the computer code was not programmed to handle dates that began in 20 as opposed to 19. So it's called the Y2K problem. And a lot of people in preparation for the Y2K began doing things like buying generators, stockpiling food, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this administration could turn out to be a Y2K level event. So I'm saying this certainly as much to myself as I am to anyone else. I need to think about, and I think we need to think about how to prep for some really bad times. Because however bad Project 2025 may be when implemented, in Donald Trump, we have someone who has no bottom. Donald Trump can always find ways to make things worse and to do things that are worse than any of us are able to imagine because most of us are normal and he is not. So think about prepping for the worst scenarios that you can imagine, whether that means stockpiling food, buying a generator, whatever, I don't know. And I'm not saying, by the way, that you will ever need any of those things. I am saying that preparation has actually always been a good idea, that we urbanites, we are the first generation or two that has lived our entire lives with the assumption that we can meet any need we ever have at any time simply by going to the store. You realize that for most of the world, for most of human history, that has not been true, and for at least large parts of the world, and it's still not true now. So, in that regard, we kind of need to pull our head out of our butts and live with the reality that life has always been unpredictable and fragile. And it has always been wise to prepare for the unforeseeable, right? And to be position yourself so that you can function for at least a week, 2 weeks, a month, if everything goes to crap. So, prep. Um, but it is important to say prep without panic. Don't make it a don't don't make it a scare yourself to death thing, right? Which, by the way, it seems to me that Democrats and leftists and progressive type people are really, really good at scaring themselves to death, paralyzing themselves here. Stop it. We can't afford that right now. Okay? Can't afford that right now. I know that we all may be feeling stuff, and emotions are real. Go ahead and feel whatever you need to feel. You know, for as long as you really need to feel it, but not 1 minute longer. And actually, in my experience, I can pretty much experience any feeling that I need to feel as deeply as I need to feel it in about 5 minutes. After that, it begins like to not be useful, right? I need to feel whatever I need to feel as long as it takes for that feeling to motivate me to whatever action I need to take. After that, keep calm and carry on. Keep calm. Recognize the potential severity of the circumstances, read up, learn, prepare, keep calm. Because we really, really need, we are going to need to operate with three, I don't know what word I want to use, three characteristics, three traits, three parts of mindset, right? In this time moving forward. Number one, we will need to operate with clarity. We need to be able to think our way through situations that we've never experienced before. Okay? We can't afford to have our thinking muddied by self-indulgent emotionalism. I'm not saying that we should not experience emotion. We should not indulge in emotionalism, letting our emotions take over. We can't afford that. The first thing we need is clarity. The second thing we need, I suppose this would qualify as an emotion. I'm not sure whether it's technically an emotion or just a character trait, but we are going to need courage. Okay? We may need degrees of courage that we have never experienced before. And we won't be able to summon that courage if we are indulging in fear and dread, or when our minds are muddied and confused. We will need clarity and we will need courage. And the third thing that we will need is compassion. Because, friends, whatever comes our way over the next few years, we are all going through it together. And there may be a time when being fully human will require that you share food with someone who voted for Donald Trump. I'm not saying that will be the case. I don't know what's going to be the case. I'm trying to help myself and the rest of us prepare for the worst. And the worst will largely not discriminate. The people who have brought about the worst will do some discriminating. Some people will do well in the very worst of times. But those people will probably not be your family members, your neighbors, your co-workers, or your friends. We will need to move together. I don't know that I have I don't know that I have anything else for you right now. Um, and of course, as soon as I'm done, as soon as I click to whatever, um, I'll probably think of something, right? Um, oh, actually, yes, I am thinking of something. I'm going to go back to the suggestion number 2. Read. Besides the books that I mentioned, I'm going to suggest reading some of the articles that have been published over the past year, which I studiously avoided, by the way. about what to expect in a Trump presidency, what Donald Trump will do if elected. The reason that I avoided them was because I felt so confident about a Biden win that I thought people would be better off considering the question of what Trump and his people would do when they lost, considering how they responded last time. Okay, so that's not the way it turned out. So it'll be a good time to go back and read some of those articles. You can find them easily online. I'm sure I'm going to read up on them myself. But as you do, as you read them, um, keep this in mind. And I don't know if anyone else is saying it yet. Well, I know one person has. Um, Perhaps the most important thing to keep in mind in terms of what to expect in a Trump presidency is that a Trump presidency is not likely to last 4 years, that a Trump presidency is likely to become a Vance presidency. I say that based on two sets of facts, which I'm going to try to get through quickly. Number one, so fact set number one, or fact set A, item number one, Donald Trump is 78 years old. Number two, Donald Trump, as far as we can tell, has a horrible diet. Number three, as far as we can see, Donald Trump has terrible sleep hygiene. I mean, he's up at 3 o'clock in the morning, on his Truth Social thing saying, I hate Taylor Swift, or whatever. And number four, Donald Trump does not exercise. He not only does not exercise, Donald Trump avoids exercise. Donald Trump believes that exercise is bad for you. Okay? So we have a 78-year-old man who has a horrible diet, horrible sleep hygiene, who refuses to exercise. And by the way, who has never released a medical report to the public, who very well may be hiding something right now and may have been hiding something for the past 8 years. Donald Trump could keel over at any minute. That's just physical, medical reality. That's not a wish. It's just, don't be surprised if it happens. I mean, if somebody else decides that they want to try to take him out and go to Mar-a-Lago, and they just might find him already splayed out on the ground on the golf course. Yeah. Don't be surprised if it happens, or if they find him, in the can, or on the can, with his phone in his hand. Oh, I didn't finish that tweet. So don't be surprised, number one, if he just kills over. Second set of facts. Set B, item number one. Donald Trump is 78 years old. Item number two. Donald Trump's father, Fred Trump, had Alzheimer's. Item number three, Alzheimer's tends to be hereditary. Don't be surprised if Donald Trump develops Alzheimer's, if Donald Trump develops dementia. And in fact, I'm going to say this to America's political press, okay? Not that I expect any of them to ever see this, but maybe somebody will pass it on and it'll get to them eventually, okay? Y'all guys, the Washington Press Corps, every single one of you needs to have a gerontologist on call, on speed dial, okay? Every single one of you needs to read up on Alzheimer's, needs to read up on dementia, and needs to develop the habit of looking for signs of dementia. Every single one of you, needs to to develop the level of concern about Donald Trump that you had about Joe Biden. Okay? He's not that much younger than Joe Biden. And by the way, when you start looking, I think you'll see signs that it's already happening. In fact, I want you folks to look up a podcast, not mine, but by two mental health professionals, Drs. John Gartner and Harry Siegel. The name of the podcast is Shrinking Trump, and the episodes are right here on YouTube. So, Shrinking Trump, look it up. They started this podcast, I think, back in April. It goes live on Friday afternoons, and a big part of every episode is documenting the progress of Donald Trump's dementia. Doctors Gardner and Siegel have already concluded that Donald Trump has early stage dementia, that we have elected as president a man who has dementia, not who might get it, a man who has it. There are a couple of things you need to know about dementia if you don't already know. Number one, dementia is incurable. It's not something that can be fixed. Number two, dementia is progressive. It is something that always gets worse. And number three, the progress of dementia's increase, or the degree to which a person gets worse, the progress of the severity of dementia does not move in a linear fashion, like at a relatively stable pace. Instead, it moves exponentially, which means it starts off slow, but then accelerates. Right? More like this rather than like this. So in the very early stages, it may not seem to be too bad or becoming too bad, but as it will get worse, and as it gets worse, it will get more worse more quickly. I don't know. Well, okay, doctors Gardner and Hart. That's I'm saying Hart when it should be Siegel because I took the first part of his first name, Harry, and somehow made it into his last name. Don't ask me why. Doctors Gardner and Siegel are saying not only that Donald Trump right now is worse than he was in 2016, not only that he is right now worse than he was in 2020, but right now, in November of 2024, Donald Trump is worse than he was in August, just September, 2 months ago, three months ago. I'm not asking you to agree. Check out the podcast for yourself. Take the time to hear them and to consider the possibility that Donald Trump himself, even if he does not keel over, that his mind will not last 4 years and that it may not even last 6 months. I believe that the people closest to Donald Trump, his family members, and those who work with him, I believe that the people closest to him, the people who have been on his campaign with him, that they see a lot more than we can see in the public, that they have a lot more evidence being presented to them on a daily basis concerning Donald Trump's condition, and that they know what is going on, and that dementia is baked into the plan. That the plan all along has not been merely to elect Donald Trump. The plan has been to have Donald Trump serve as president as long as he is useful to them. And then when he is no longer useful to them, to exercise the 25th Amendment to install J.D. Vance. I may be wrong. That's speculation. But that's what I've got. So We need to prepare not just for a Trump presidency, but for a Vance presidency. My concern there is that, number one, I don't know nearly as much about J.D. Vance as I do about Donald Trump, so I have a lot to learn. Number two, based on what I have seen and heard so far, J.D. Vance may turn out to actually be worse than Donald Trump, which is something that I did not think was possible a few months ago. And I say that he may turn out to be worse than Donald Trump because he may turn out to be Donald. Da, 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 oh man, it's right here on the tip of my tongue. Mr. Patrick's character in the second Terminator movie. I'm forgetting the actor's name. So Arnold was T-1000. The second Terminator, was that T-2000? He may turn out to be the T-2000. Okay? The Trump 2.0. The version of Trump that has the same convictions. And Trump doesn't really. Trump doesn't really have convictions. Trump has like pathologies. But J.D. Trump, wow. I just said J.D. Trump. J.D. Vance having the same perspective as Donald Trump, but having the intelligence and the competence that Donald Trump lacks, and then being positioned with staff and advisors that Donald Trump lacked in his first term. Yeah, a vice presidency could be worse than a second Trump presidency would be. I am now done. I've done a lot of speculating, but I'm trying to speculate intelligently. I hope that this has been helpful. You can let me know. Please drop something in the comments. Let me know what you think about any of this. You can think whether you think I'm right, I'm wrong, I'm stupid. Fine, whatever. Let's try something that is rare in the history of YouTube. Let's try intense, thoughtful, passionate, civil discourse. Talk to me. Let's see, maybe we can make something good happen here. And I'm going to sign off when I find the sign off button. 3, 2, 1, bye.